Hello. Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. Today, I want to talk to you about being in service to others. And we've been all taught that being in service to others is a very good thing, that you want to sacrifice yourself for the sake of others. But I'm going to tell you that that's bullshit and that is not how you need to live your life. We've been told it's virtuous. We've been told it's good. We've been told that you're not living the life that you're supposed to live unless you're doing for others. But this mindset, this way of living, is actually one of the things that is creating health problems. It's creating lack of business, lack of success in your business. It's creating dismantling and unhealthy relationships, or dismantling of and unhealthy relationships. And ultimately, I believe it is one of the root causes of not being happy, not being fulfilled, not being satisfied. And I believe that when we break this pattern of sacrificing self for others, of being in service to others, that we actually have the opportunity to step into the truth of who we are. And by doing that, we actually serve others at a greater capacity, at a greater and more profound level. So we've been told that we can't be selfish, that we have to sacrifice so that we're not selfish. But in fact, that ends up becoming a more selfish thing than when you do the opposite, which is put your needs and wants first. Because what happens at that place, at that level, and I'll get into this more deeply, what happens is that you have the capacity to give more to the world and give more to others once you get there. And you've probably heard me talk about this thing I call the employee mindset, and that's going to come into play here. But first, I want to talk to you about where this mindset comes from, why it's so strong, how it ends up sabotaging your life. And then I'm going to, of course, talk to you about what you can do about it. Because for a lot of people, this mindset is the thing that's keeping them from everything that they want, keeping them from a life full of joy and freedom and love and happiness. And I know we all have these things that we want, but at the core, that's what we're chasing. We want the money so that we can have freedom, stability, then joy, then freedom. We want the relationships so we can feel love and joy. And so all of those things that you're chasing are going to boil down to these feelings that you feel inside. And this is one of the reasons why people gain massive success and they get there and they're like, what now? I don't feel any different. In fact, I feel worse than I did when I was chasing this thing. And so I want to talk to you about one of the crucial points in actually getting the love, the joy, the freedom that you're all chasing, that you're all craving. And by extension of that, the other things in your life come and work The relationships start to work, the business starts to work, and you just have more fun. Who doesn't want that? Okay, so let's start by where this mindset of sacrificing for others comes from. Now, years ago, I was watching this show, and there was this one episode where this woman who had magical powers had, like, she was very powerful, and she had been captured, and they had been putting her through it, like torture and things like that, so that they would break her. Their intention was that she would do the bidding of the master. She would become the slave. And so I'm watching this show, and I'm seeing them go through all of the things, like she fights back and she refuses to do what she's told, and they punish her and they torture her, and they go through this for over a period of time. It's like that process of trying to break a horse, trying to domesticate a wild animal. It's the same sort of process. And then there's this point when she finally submits and becomes the slave. And I just lost it at that moment. I just started crying because all of a sudden I felt like I had seen my life play out in front of me. And we all go through this conditioning period where we are told how to be, told what to think, told how to act. And when we don't follow the rules, it comes with punishment. Like, we're 6 years old, you break the rules, you get punished. And little by little, we give up our autonomy, we give up our freedom. And obviously, if you had very strict parents who were overprotective, who didn't let you do anything, depending on what your situation was, this mindset is going to be stronger. And so little by little, you have been told not to do that, pipe down, don't be too much. You can't act that way. What will the neighbors think? Don't talk out of turn. And all those things that you thought were possible, those magical things you were told, that's not real. That doesn't exist. That's impossible. So little by little, all those things that were big and bright and magical of you were shut down. You were told that's not how life is. That's not the truth. Even though you were little and you knew you had more access to the truth when you were small than you probably have to the truth now. You knew that more was possible, but the people around you kept telling you, no, it's not that way. You have to do it this way. And little by little, you became a slave to their reality, not the truth of what's possible, but a slave to their reality. And their reality is bound by the limitations of their own mind. I'm reminded of when everybody thought it was impossible to run a 4-minute mile. They said that it was humanly impossible, that nobody could do it. And they even calculated there could be this one possible minute chance, but the weather would have to be perfect. The runner would have to be a specific runner. The track conditions would have to be this certain way. And still, it's going to be impossible. But then one day, somebody did it. And then all of a sudden, everybody knew that it was possible. It changed the truth. Everybody had been a slave to this reality that it's impossible to run a 4-minute mile. And then all of a sudden, it became possible. And once it became possible, people started doing it left and right. And so consider that you have been living in this reality that's not the truth, and that you have bent what's possible for you to fit inside this cage. And the rules of society have told you what is true. Your parents have told you what is true. Your teachers have told you what is true. Every boss that you ever had, every authority figure, every person you looked up to has told you what is true, and you became a slave to their reality. You bent what is true for you into what is true for them. And so you gave up your autonomy. You gave up your ability to actually think and make decisions for yourself. It now, over time, this doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to most people to some degree. And over time, you no longer think for yourself without having to run it by somebody else. Because what happens if you do it and they tell you that it's wrong? How many times did they tell you you were wrong when you were little? That you were doing it the wrong way? I was 2 years old when I learned how to tie my shoes. Supposedly, kids don't figure out or are not usually able to do that until they're 6. But I was 2, and I kept trying to do it the way my mom was showing me, but I couldn't do it that way. And that's probably why most kids don't learn until they're 6. But I decided that I was going to learn how to do it. And honestly, my mom used to tie my shoes too tight and it would hurt my feet. So it was really important for me to figure it out. But I figured it out my own way. I tied my shoes a unique way that was not the way that I was shown. I was still autonomous at 2 years old. I still could think for myself and decide for myself. I didn't have to do it the way my mom told me. I could figure out my own way. And as entrepreneurs, as creatives, as leaders, as trailblazers, this ability to do it your own way and think outside the box and not care what somebody else thinks is one of the most important attributes that you can have. I call it the employee mindset because it's like you're working for somebody else, right? If I thought that I had to tie my shoes that way, I would have been working for somebody else. But I was working for myself, figuring out how to tie my shoes so I could tie them appropriately without having my feet smashed. I was working for me. I wasn't working for my mom. I wasn't trying to make her proud so that she would be nice to me, so that she would feed me, so that she would come home after work. As I got older, there was a moment when I was 7 when I decided I didn't want to be me anymore because being me was too hard. Being me came with pain. Being me came with consequences. When I stood up for myself, I got smacked down, sometimes physically, definitely emotionally. When I defied something that seemed absurd to me, I got smacked down, told, no, the way you're thinking about it is wrong. And I know a lot of you listening can relate to this. And eventually, at some point, it just got to be too hard to fight against what everybody else was saying, what everybody else was telling me to do. And so I acquiesced. I became the slave. And my life became about doing it right and making sure that they were happy with me so that I would be safe, so that I would be loved, so that maybe they would leave me alone so I would get a little taste of that freedom. But what happens when you make that decision at some point when you're young, and usually those of us who have made that decision, we made that decision very young, and we did it to stay safe. We did it to be loved, because it was really hard to fight against the adults in our life. It was really hard to fight against the powers that be, the teachers, the this, the that, the da, 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 because if they weren't happy, then maybe our needs would not get met. And so once you've made that decision, though, it becomes a habit. And as you are an adult, it starts to play out everywhere. So you get a job and you follow their rules. You get into a relationship and you do what you need to do to make sure they're taken care of, to make sure they're happy, to make sure that you don't upset them. And this happens both with women and men. I know stereotypically we say women are the ones who sacrifice everything for their kids and their family, but men do it too. The rules are just a little bit different. The sacrifice is a little bit different, but it's still sacrifice. So I know, for instance, my grandfather, he loved music and the arts, but he was an electrical engineer and he made good money and he supported the family and they did fine. Everybody was safe, but he wasn't happy. He sacrificed for the family. And now I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but I am saying that there is another way. And if you make the decision to be an entrepreneur, you need to break that mindset. Because what happens when you don't is you end up chasing everything that's going to keep you safe. You end up acting like an employee, but you're the boss. And this plays out when you have clients. So you bend over backward for them. One or two suggest something and you change your whole model to accommodate for them without actually taking the time to do the research and get the metrics to determine if that's actually what's right for your business. You will let your employees walk all over you. You will have trouble firing them because you're in service to them and not to you and your business. When business isn't going well, you will look to others to see what you need to do. You will get that thing that we call shiny object syndrome, where you see one person doing something, you're like, oh shit, maybe I need to be doing that. You see somebody else doing well and they're doing it differently than what feels right for you, but you're like, oh man, maybe I need to do it that way. And in relationship, you give up who you are. You give up those things that really bring you joy because maybe your partner doesn't like to do those things. So you don't make the space for you to have that aspect of your life because you've been told that you have to sacrifice, that you can't have it all. And generally speaking, most people are living in a realm where you can't have it all because they live in this give and take, this compromise where they don't realize that there's a third choice. But in order to access that third choice, you can't be in a state of lack. You can't be emotionally in a place where you feel like you're missing something. You have to feel full. You have to be full of joy and happiness and gratitude and all of those elevated emotions, because those emotions are the gateway to seeing the third choice, to seeing possibilities that you can't access when you're feeling like maybe there's not enough money, not enough time, maybe I'm not enough. When you're in that place, you can't get to the things that are actually possible. So this place of giving up, letting go of what's right for you and what's meaningful for you in order to make somebody else happy. There's a reason we do that. And the pattern is because we needed to have our needs met. When we were small and we first started making these decisions, we needed our needs met. We needed our parents to be happy with us so that they would feed us, so they would keep a roof over our head. We didn't know that we wouldn't be thrown out. We had no idea. Episode, lost in a grocery store, or forgotten to get picked up after school, something like that, then that reality became a big possibility in our minds. So we bent over backwards to make them happy. We became a slave to their rules. And if you want to have the life that is truly meant for you, a life of freedom where you feel good all of the time, or at least 90% of the time, you can't be living by somebody else's rules. You need to be free to lean into what feels good to you. And so many people have given up what they want for what other people want so much that they actually don't know what they want. I can't tell you how many of my clients are like, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. Because they've spent so much of their life trying to be what they're supposed to be, trying to be what will keep them safe. But what will keep you safe is not the same thing as what will make you happy. But what will make you happy is also the thing that will keep you safe. So let me say that again in another way. The thing that you have become, and I say thing because it's not actually the truth of who you are, the thing that you have become in order to stay safe, that is not the thing that will make you happy. Being that will not make you happy. It will not make you fulfilled. It will not make you satisfied. It might keep you alive. It might even keep a roof over your head, but it's going to come with a cost. It's going to come with the cost of anxiety. It's going to come with the cost of potential health problems. It's going to come with the cost of never being able to do enough, never being enough, not being good enough, not being capable enough. Because the truth is you can't make everybody happy and you can't follow everybody else's rules because there's too many sets of rules. But the thing that will make you happy, make you fulfilled, and ironically also keep you safe is the thing that is right for you, doing what is true and right for you. And in order to do that, you have to get in touch with who you truly are. You have to realize that that thing that you became, I like to call it the hologram self, that thing that you became to stay safe is not who you are. That the more you tap into who you truly are, the more access you have to your joy, your happiness, and your safety. But you have to feel safe being who you are. And that's the thing that was smacked down when they made you a slave. That's the thing that was beaten out of you. Think about taming a wild horse, right? They tame you until you're no longer that wild and free thing. They tame you until you will do what you're told. Doing what you're told is not going to make you happy. It might keep you alive, but it's not going to make you happy. And the truth is, most of us are not in a situation where we're facing life and death. So that choice doesn't need to be made anymore. You can break the rules. I like to think about dogs. So we can look at dogs. We train dogs the same way we train children, the same way you have been trained. We train them with shame, punishment, and reward. We shame them when they do it wrong, and we make them feel bad, and we punish them. And we give them treats when they do it right and they do it good. And so the dog becomes loyal and follows you around, always wanting a treat. Let me have it. I'll do it good. I'll just be good and you'll give me treats. Yay. And that's what so many of us spent our life doing. If I just do it right, if I just do it good, you'll give me a treat. I'll get rewarded. And we get that reward and it's never enough because it's not what we truly want. And if we do it wrong, we feel that shame. We don't even have to be shamed anymore. They don't even have to put the shame on us. We just feel it because we've been trained. We've been trained that this is bad, this is wrong. And this is one of the things that becomes so difficult about breaking that employee mindset, about regaining your autonomy, is that when you step out of that thing you have been trained to be, that thing you became to stay safe, it comes with this shame. But you need to understand that that shame is not real. And a lot of people are going to give me a lot of slack for this. No, I feel that shame. Trust me, I know. I spent years working through the shame. And then I realized eventually, once I had worked through all the shame, that the shame was not actually fucking real. That underneath all of that shame was just a fear of not being safe. And that shame was just a way for me to not look and deal with that fear of not being safe. So when you start stepping into who you are, all this stuff is going to come up. All these stories, all these like, oh, that's not the right way to do it. Oh, you shouldn't do it that way. Oh, and then the shame and all these things, all these detours to keep you from stepping into the things that you really want to do, all this anxiety. And it's all there because it's trying to prevent you from feeling unsafe. Because you learned through that process of becoming the slave, you learned that being who you are is unsafe. And yes, when you were small, it probably was the best decision to maybe stuff that down. But part of becoming an adult, part of becoming free, part of becoming an entrepreneur, a leader, a creative, a trailblazer is unwinding that. Because until you do that, you will never be free to create what it is that you're truly meant here to create. Until you break free from that fear, that shame, that anxiety, all that bullshit story about what you're supposed to be in order to stay safe, until you are willing to let go of that, you will always struggle knowing what's best and right for you. And you will acquiesce to what the master wants. And the master is going to change shape all the time. Sometimes it's going to be a plan. Sometimes it's going to be some guru you watched on YouTube. Sometimes it's going to be your mom. Sometimes it's going to be your grandma. Sometimes it's going to be that random person that said something on the street, that person that told you to smile. And you're like, oh shit, I did it wrong. And you get mad. You think you're mad at them, but you're really mad at yourself because you didn't show up in that way that you're supposed to. So as you move forward, as you think about your own path, if you've chosen the path of entrepreneurship or being an artist or doing things differently than just going through the motions like most people are doing, if you've chosen that path, it is because at a deep down level, you want freedom. You want freedom to be who you are, to make your own rules. You don't want to be a slave anymore. So breaking that employee mindset needs to be number one on your list. Feeling free to make your own choices and not worry about whether it's right or wrong for everybody else, but know that it's right for you is the foundation to what will make you succeed. And lots of people have to build and lose everything multiple times in order to break this. They have to build it in the way they're supposed to for somebody else and then lose it all. They have to build massive success and then lose their family. They have to have all this build and loss until they finally realize that living by those other people's rules is bullshit. That letting go of that is what's necessary to be free and actually create the life that brings you the joy and the freedom and the love. Because if you're living by somebody else's rules, you're not showing up as who you are. And the people that you're involved with, friends, lovers, business partners, they don't even know who you are. So there's nothing real about that relationship. So it's always going to be on shaky ground. It's always going to be ripe for crumbling and falling apart. I know that's not what you want. I know that's not what you want to do, is build a life that just crumbles. I know that you want to build a life that feels good. And sure, there's going to be some obstacles and some ups and some downs. And what if you could actually just feel good through that whole process? And that's what happens when you become the wolf. That's what happens when you're free to live as the truth of who you are. When you're free to be you. You can create what you want. You can go after what you want. You can love what you want. Be with who you want. All of those things are accessible. and you actually begin to not care what other people think. Scrolling social media becomes fun and inspirational rather than comparison and shameful. Isn't that what you would prefer? Wouldn't you prefer to have more fun? Wouldn't you prefer to be present and enjoy the moments in your life? And the side effect of all of that, the things you need, they come to you. Trust me, they come to you. I spent my life knowing that, but I couldn't figure out how to get there. And then I finally started getting there because I finally stopped being the slave. I finally stopped being what I was supposed to be and started being who I am. And then all of the things started to fall into place. I am proof that it works. It's not the easiest journey, especially if you were conditioned in maybe a harsh manner. But it's possible. And I need you to know that it's possible. Okay. I will see you all next time on Be the Wolf. And just remember, when you operate from the truth of who you are, when you reclaim the freedom of who you are, all of that is for the betterment of you, yes, and the betterment of humanity, because your gifts, when you can access your gifts, they give to the world. You end up in overflow, and that is the most giving thing that you can do. We'll see you all next time. Bye.